very good morning and a warm welcome to Mentoring Summit India 2025. I'm Prerna, your host for today, and it is truly my pleasure to welcome you to the second edition of this summit hosted by Mentor Together with the support of our partners LinkedIn, the BT Group, the British Asian Trust, and IKEA. Exactly a year ago, when Mentor Together hosted the first ever mentoring summit in India, we were genuinely overwhelmed by the energy, enthusiasm, and belief in the need for a dedicated platform for cross-sector dialogue and field building in youth mentoring. It is your participation and passion that has made this an annual gathering. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome, and very brief introduction to Mentor Together. At Mentor Together, we live, breathe, and dream mentoring. Our singular mission as a non-profit is to champion mentoring as a core ingredient in India's youth development story, especially for young people who are the most marginalized and vulnerable. Over the past 16 years, our practice has built one of India's largest mentoring communities, 25,000 plus mentors and 50,000 plus young people in programs across schools, colleges, and communities. Beyond direct programs, we work to embed mentoring into large public systems of education and employment. Most recently, with the Government of India in their flagship National Career Service portal, enabling young job seekers across the country to access guidance and support at scale. We believe that creating public goods in mentoring, the know-how, the standards, the tools, the dialogue, and the systems is essential for India to become an exemplar country for youth mentoring in the years ahead. The Mentoring Summit is our way of building that shared national platform. Over the 2 days, we have two clear ambitions: to articulate a shared vision for how mentoring can truly become a movement for young people across India, and to deepen our understanding of what high-quality mentoring looks like in practice. Today, through 7 panels and talks, we will explore some of the most important questions facing the mentoring movement, from unlocking mentor pools to building a quality-first mentoring ecosystem, to understanding the models that work across India's vibrant non-profit sector. On day 2, we host 12 practitioner workshops designed for deeper skill building and peer exchange, from integrating mental health goals into mentoring, to harnessing tech and AI in program design, to a collective action workshop with the Government of Karnataka's Collegiate and Technical Education Department, bringing together educators from 30 districts of the state. We hope over the next 2 days, you learn both from the people on the stage as well as from those sitting around you, our incredible mentoring community who every day believe in, practice, and advocate for mentoring. Like Preeti Khare, director at MasterCard from Pune, a mentor with Mentor Together for over 12 years, who has seen her mentee journey from a shelter home to becoming a teacher today. Preeti, are you here? Where are you? Oh, great. A big round of applause to Preeti, please. Thank you, Preeti. Welcome. And like Vinuta from the Government Polytechnic for Women, Bengaluru, who has championed mentoring so passionately as part of Karnataka government's Prerna program that colleagues and students lovingly call her Mentoring Ma'am. Vinuta, she's here to join us. And the 7 organizations championing mentoring for youth leaving institutional care. They are here to build a shared national framework for mentoring care leavers alongside young people with lived experience. And these are Udayan Care, Miracle Foundation, We Live Foundation, Aid at Action, Catalysts for Social Action, and the Care Leavers Advocacy Network. A warm welcome to all of you. We could actually keep sharing heartwarming acts of leadership and service, but our hope is that the summit gives you the chance to meet others and hear many more stories directly from our community. Now, let us start with our first panel for the day, a vision for mentoring in India. The discussion will explore how mentoring, when integrated into public systems and institutional structures, can become a powerful, personalized, and relational tool to counter exclusion and unequal access to opportunity. We are truly honored to have an incredible line of distinguished speakers whose varied expertise will add depth and richness to today's conversation. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the moderator of this panel, Vasanthi Hariprakash. Vasanthi is an award-winning journalist, speaker, and media entrepreneur, and the founder of Pickle Jar Media, which helps brands and nonprofits tell their stories. Some of her career highlights include being an editor with the New Indian Express, a prime-time radio host with All India Radio and Radio City, a special correspondent with NDTV, and documentary anchor for BBC World News. A warm welcome to you, Vasanthi. Let us now welcome our first panelist, Dr. Rajiv Gowda. Dr. Gowda represented Karnataka in the Rajya Sabha from 2014 to 2020 and has held influential policy and academic leadership roles, including chairperson of the Center for Public Policy at IIM Bangalore and director on the Central Board of the Reserve Bank of India. He holds a PhD in Public Policy and Management from the Wharton School. He is also one of the founding trustees of Mentor Together, shaping its vision from inception. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Gowda. Let us next welcome Arundhati Gupta. Arundhati, the founder and CEO of Mentor Together, has built Mentor Together into India's foremost youth mentoring organization after starting it shortly after graduating college to pay forward mentorship that had been catalytic in helping her discover her passion for social entrepreneurship. She is an Ashoka Fellow and a Brookings Echidna Global Scholar and was also a UK-India Commonwealth Scholar. Arundhati has written and spoken about the power of mentoring widely, from the stages of Davos to The Guardian. A warm welcome to you, Arundhati. A warm welcome to our next panelist, Aditi Jha. Aditi Jha is Executive Director and the Legal and Public Policy Lead, South Asia, at LinkedIn. She has 20+ years of experience in law, technology, and public policy. As part of the LinkedIn India leadership team, she has built the government affairs and policy function from the ground up, shaping workforce and skills policies and driving global partnerships. She did her LLB at NUJS Kolkata and her master's from Stanford University, where she specialized in law, science, and technology. A very warm welcome to you, Aditi. Let us now welcome Dr. Livia Alfonsi. Livia is a development economist at the Harvard Business School. Her research focuses on labor market frictions and determinants of labor market participation in low-income settings, with a particular emphasis on barriers to youth employment and female labor market participation. In a separate line of research, she investigates the factors that shape individual preferences and beliefs. She holds a PhD from UC Berkeley. A warm welcome to you, Livia. I will now let Vasanthi lead the panel discussion. Over to you, Vasanthi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ili bandiruvanta elrigu namaskara, and it's good to see what I see, which is facing a group of, or multiple pairs of eager eyes who are seeking to learn something, having shared lots or been mentors yourselves. So just to read the room so that all of us then craft our messages or sentences in a way that it's of value to this room, may I ask how many of you are already in some form mentors, whether it says formal institutional mentors or informally giving? So can I, yes. That's almost the whole room. But while being mentors, are you also being mentored? Can I have again a show of hands? That is a robust percentage as well, which means that all of us are investing in learning just as we are probably sharing. Great news for all of us, do you think? I'd request everyone to pick up or at least test your mics. I have a feeling you will have to share this set, and you've heard about the people on this side by way of introductions. But what I'm going to do is time ourselves just so that it's now 10:03. And let me ask, how many minutes from here? And who's going to be the timekeeper? Yes, so the moment you see that we are kind of stepping on to the next panel's time, you have all the liberty to kind of to stop us. You have the power. May I know your name? Okay, she's not just a timekeeper, but she's also the stopper. So Mamta, please give us a warning 10 minutes prior. I want each of us to start with us 20 years back. Each of us 20 years back. If you want, even 40 years back, but we are barely, we've just spent a few decades on this earth. But Rajiv, do I start with you? And I want each of us to share about a mentor that you had or a mentor that you wish you had.
That's a really tough one, actually. A tough one more to share rather than anything else. So it sounds very different because I come from a very different background. So I came back to India in 2000 and preparing to enter politics. And in 2004, I was denied the Lok Sabha ticket from Bangalore. And it was a very tough time. But then I asked one mentor, what should I do? And he said, what do you want? And I said, I want to win the Lok Sabha from Bangalore, which I still haven't succeeded in doing. I just lost last year. But the point is, he said, then go back and work on the ground. Now that I've passed 60, when I was looking back, I just thought that my close friend had become Prime Minister of India, and Dr. Manmohan Singh. And nobody told me, just work with him. And here I was slogging on the ground for another decade before any break came my way. And I just missed that entire opportunity. So that's when I think, the mentor, for whatever reasons, didn't really do as much for me as I wish he had. That's all. It's tough one.
A really, really candid start to today's discussion. I'm going to flip it and actually ask you, Livia, the same question.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm going to go with a positive story. A mentor of mine was a professor who was not even, it wasn't really my professor. I never took a class directly with him, but somehow our paths interacted during my undergrad. And it was somebody that we were briefly mentioning earlier, took me sort of under his wing and mentored me to even just understand and learn that there was a possibility of a career in research, coming from a family where nobody even knew that that was a possibility, let alone knowing what a PhD was and why would you want to go and do a PhD and not start working right away. I think having somebody that took the time to share not only their experience, but the reasons behind choices that they made and where those choices led them, was really a way for me to see a possibility that I didn't know was there, and a path to that
So
possibility.
the quick and flip question is that if you weren't Harvard research, what, in the absence of that mentor advice, would you have been today?
Oof, that's a hard one. Probably a CPA. I don't know. Probably something around that.
Right. What about you, Aditi?
So Dr. Gowda had shared this story once, and he had on the sidelines of another event, and you said you'd never say that in public. So so you set the bar really high today with such a candid.
We're glad. We're glad.
Yeah.
People are opening up right at the beginning.
Yeah, I think a lot of our lives, it's sort of, to quote Charles Dickens, it's, think of that one moment in life that completely changed your trajectory. And I think for me, it's, my family comes from Bihar, and if you're a good student, you either became a doctor or engineer, and you definitely became an IS officer. Like there's no other career path possible. I didn't see myself building bridges, writing code, and I definitely didn't see myself slogging the UPSC. I had a mentor who was 2 years senior to me in school, who went on to National Law School, Bangalore. She was the only person I knew in the sort of area we lived in, the networks that I had, who did something different. And she inspired me to go study law. It was an act of teenage rebellion to go to law school and not become a doctor or an engineer. And I'm glad, that I did that. I'm still the rebel without the cause in the boardrooms. You need people like me there as well.
You
So,
do. There's a lot
yeah.
of good that comes out of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aditi. I'm just coming back from Bihar, in fact, where I was for elections. And I can see that aspiration still holds good, probably not to the extent, and then you know of Anand of the Super 30 fame. And there is a tale to be told of current Bihar's aspirations of the young. But Arundhati, you have gone on to create Mentor together as really a powerhouse. So was there a mentor in your life, or was this an independent streak of thought?
Well, just look to my right, because I think maybe in many ways, a lot of times we ask mentors that question, that what makes you do this, and they often say the story that you had, that sometimes looking back you realize that you could have done with a mentor, right? And I think people like Dr. Gowda take that effort then to, despite not having it, to actively make it an act of service to do it. For me, it happened in a way that probably if you met anyone in college, they would be very surprised with where I am right now, because social entrepreneurship or anything in this pathway was not in the picture for like the first 20 years of my life, right? And that you set up a very different pathway for yourself, academics, business, those were all the things that I was aspiring for. And as a college student, I remember my college just, randomly sent me to an event and said, make some presentation, right? And it was something I had to put some ideas together randomly for. And Dr. Gowda was the moderator of that event. And after he patiently heard all of us young people who shared some very, I think, silly ideas, he nonetheless came and asked all of us. It was just students from St. Joseph's, from Mount Carmel's. He said, these are all great ideas about what you think about education. What are you going to do about them? And I was a final year commerce student who had no plans to do anything about them because life was set in other ways. But he was actually very insistent. He shared his vision that he thought of how Bangalore could be a different city, that there were ways to connect young people to better opportunities, more information. And it was so new to me, but I was very intrigued. And I started spending all my time in my final year of college volunteering. And that really just changed the course for me, because after that I joined a bank, and I always say this, but it was the most boring year of my life, right? And I was like, I cannot do this, right? And the idea of that empowerment that I felt when a mentor took that time to, really see what I was good at was just that kernel I couldn't let go of. So a lot of people think that, becoming a social entrepreneur, there's an opportunity cost to it. I think of the opportunity cost if I hadn't been this, right? I had a mentor. I was the lucky person that had that. And that was the one that allowed me to see that this is such a transformative experience for young people, and many more of us should be accessing it, not because our college sent us to a random fest one day, right? That's the vision that led to Mentor Together.
Very interesting, the opportunity cost of not doing that. Now, I will add my piece from my story, after which we move to some specifics to all the panelists here. But I also want to request and tell the audience that please start saving your own questions. There's going to be a good chunk of time. We don't want it to be really a one-way approach to this and have a token time for the Q&A. But I personally feel, Arundhati, that I did not have a mentor, and in a way it served me good, because it allowed me to make fresh mistakes every time. Like, I just had graduated in electronics, and I just thought it was a fantastic escape from BSc Electronics Honors into journalism, which I felt was where I belonged, because I was glad to leave that piece behind. I tried being at IIM and tried to crack CAT and failed twice. And I have a feeling that if there was somebody wise, they would have probably advised me much earlier to go a different path. But the series of events that followed was a sort of a tumbling and this thing, and then suddenly finding that, hey, this wasn't a bad path. So at the same time, when I've had a chance to, let's say, be mentor institutionally, first with the US consulate and sometimes to people I meet in my travels, I therefore go with a complete disclaimer to the mentee or to the receiver, saying that this is what it was, and it's quite possible that it doesn't apply to you. At the same time, there are insights that you could take from. Now, let me come to the big question, which is that many times I have seen the term mentoring being confused with or interchangeably used for coaching, counseling, maybe even therapy. So it's therefore important to define how each of us is defining mentoring, and there is probably no single answer out there yet. So while you now answer, or rather, you respond to this particular one, which is that, Aditi, if I were to start with you, that in terms of LinkedIn, you already have multiple mentoring programs, and probably some for focus for the youth. So probably you might want to start with what are those, and the one which is in alliance with Mentor Together.
No, thank you. So at LinkedIn, look, our vision is to create economic opportunity for every single member of the workforce. And there are two parts to it. Show of hands, anyone here who's not on LinkedIn? Oh, thank God. Okay, great. And the reason I ask that is, the reason I ask this question is to drive on the one, look, we're the world's largest professional platform. So every professional, everyone seeking mentorship, and anyone who has the ability to be a mentor, they're on the platform. What we've also seen at LinkedIn is that, people with the same skills, same aptitude, same attitude, everything else being constant, sometimes the economic opportunities that you can access are determined by the networks that you're a part of. And we call this the network gap. So think of it that, where you were born, who your parents are, which school you went to, what community you grew up in, all of these sum together, they form your network, and they do have a role to play in what opportunities you get access to, as well as what you aspire for, right? So, we hear this a lot, that you can only become what you see, right? So if you don't see around you people who've done X or Y, or for me, like, I saw this one person who became a lawyer, did not do the classical engine medicine route. So sometimes people don't even have access to that. And I think that an effective way to close this network gap is by connecting mentors with mentees. So we do that at a platform scale. We have 165 million members on LinkedIn right now in India, 1.3 billion worldwide. And then as a company, our CSR or a social impact and philanthropy programs, the programs that we fund or that we partner with also have the singular objective of creating equality when it comes to access to economic opportunity. So of course, one of our partners is Arundhati and Mentor Together, where we've done some in-person programs and digital programs. And I want to talk about this fantastic program that we have called LinkedIn Coaches, which is where employees of LinkedIn are encouraged to become coaches to people who do not have the traditional access to opportunities. And it could be young people, early in career, people from tier 2, tier 3 towns, women, veterans who are trying to transition into the workforce. And we've done more than 1 million of those in the 13, 14 years that we've been around worldwide. And our employees are great champions of this program. It's not like everyone has to be gone and nudged and said, if you don't do this, it's a certain points of your appraisal or anything. People want to give. People want to have that intrinsic.
So the numbers and the scale at which a country like India needs this sort of guidance the mentoring process also has to have a caveat, which is that how do you assess the mentoring system and the mentors? So I want to take this question to both you and Rajiv, that Rajiv more from, let's say, the policy point of view, how do you see this playing out? But I think it's also necessary for the mentors or this thing to submit themselves to a periodic review, and how are you placing these mechanisms, Arundhati and Rajiv?
No, absolutely. I think like you said, Vasanthi, that mentoring is both confused and sometimes like almost seen as an attribute of other roles, right? A professor should be a great mentor, a manager should be a great mentor, and it's sort of just seen as almost like a skill or and this idea of formalizing it is an interesting one, because I think both are true, especially for India, where like we've seen at Mentor Together and even through putting this summit together, right? There's such a diverse context across India with nonprofits, businesses, communities, where mentoring has to be fit. And it cannot fit a single mold, right? So it can still retain some of that informality, where a great teacher takes on a role, or someone who's a great nonprofit leader takes that on for their community. But I think if it has to become a system which can be measured and can be tracked in a way, what you're saying is very, very true, right? Because, and the good news is that in the 15, 16 years that we've existed, I remember that at the start of Mentor Together, one of our initial seed funding was with a grant that Dr. Gowda raised at the Center for Public Policy in IIM Bangalore. And I joined as this, just freshly minted finance graduate who had this idea of mentoring. And for those 2 years that I was at IIM Bangalore, I just started reading all the literature and research that existed on mentoring, and it blew my mind. I was like, this has been studied. This has been measured. There are ways to say why some people are good mentors than others. Yeah. And you just have to make this a program that then more people can access. So I think part of it is to recognize the formal capacity for mentoring and to design different systems. And over the 2 days of the summit, we spend a lot of time actually talking about each of these components.
Great. So, yes, Rajiv.
Yeah, mentoring, for a professor is part of the job practically. And, whether you want to or not, people like to come and discuss career plans and things of that sort. That's one dimension. Now, when we initially started, one of the, intuitions we had was that, actually this comes out of some other work that we'd done earlier. We used to do some career guidance camps for school kids, right? And then we found that, even in a city like Bangalore, in some of the best schools, children's sense of possibilities were very limited. They didn't know about different options. They didn't know what their aptitudes and passions were. And so one of the thoughts we had was, look, just if people want to be engineers, right? There are 1 lakh or maybe 10 times that amount of engineers working in this city. Or if you want to work in finance, if you want to work in media, right? I mean, I used to wake up to Vasanti's Good Morning Bengaluru, or Bangalore, you know. She was the voice of Bangalore when radio first hit our city. Anyway, so the point is that, but we don't know where to go, who to turn to, etc. And so then we were discussing, look, I think we really need to create some kind of a platform, you know, at scale, which, to her credit, Arundhati has done this in a very systematic manner. Instead of just going out there, launching an app and saying we'll make something happen, you know, studied the process, gone through what works, what doesn't, how do you build in various kinds of safeguards, you know, all those, really calls for a lot of patience and detailed attention to detail. So all that has happened. And now there is this tech platform which allows people, wherever they are, to engage with youngsters elsewhere and mentor them. So that's, this is a way of sort of scaling things. Now, I'm in the policy world, and government's strength is the ability to scale. Yeah. More than that, if you remember the statement made by the person who opened the event today, Prerna. Okay, Prerna. She mentioned equality of opportunity. Okay, that phrase comes from our preamble. And when you think about equality of opportunity in this country, it's still 75 or 78 years later, very, very limited. You know, your career path is decided by which school your parents put you into at the age of 3 or 4, right? And and so how do you break that? How do you create equality of opportunity? One way is to open people's minds to possibilities. Yeah. And that might come from these kinds of platforms where people have someone to talk to. Otherwise, their worldview is limited to where they come from and the handful of people they may know in one profession or the other, right? You know, just to give you a sense, yeah. I went to the US in 1984. I also, like Aditi, was a rebel who didn't pursue my engineering seats and all that, which I had got on merit. And then basically chose to do a BA because I wanted to study public policy and enter politics.
Such clarity so young?
Yeah.
How?
But the challenge actually, when I got elected to parliament, I was 50. But I've been preparing from the age of 5. So it's it takes a lot of patience and resilience to make it. Anyway, the point is, that's why I keep saying your experience may differ. Mine is a little bit of a different story. Nonetheless, it comes from growing up in a family of freedom fighters and politicians as well. So my environment, that was certainly feasible. And I've been lucky enough to make it happen. But, so what was I saying? Okay. Anyway, the point is, this, if we can find ways to work with government colleges, scale this platform, then you're just unleashing the potential of, millions and millions of youngsters who would have missed out on that. So that's really the mission that I would urge you to keep working towards.
Yeah, very true, Rajiv. Thanks so much. I'm going to come to Livia as well as then open the floor to audience questions, so please keep them ready. One of the things that you mentioned is that unleashing the potential, and where better than India, really home to the world's largest young population. And I do get to meet, as recent as Jammu Kashmir, for instance, where I was speaking with a group of young people, to Chhattisgarh and Tamil Nadu, and I'm going to share that in the next session. But to you, Livia, you're in a very unique position to inform this audience, this aspect of what are the commonalities between your experience in a country like Uganda, where you're spending a considerable amount of time. And very often people say that, okay, if it's, say, sub-Saharan Africa, in some ways, there may be commonalities between this part of Asia. But I'm going to ask you the opposite, which is that what are you finding in the young people with, let's say, your home country or in the US? And so what are the challenges, therefore, when you're setting up this kind of a mentoring mechanism?
Thank you. Double thank you. I would start with, I think you asked me, you opened with the similarities and then challenges, and I would start by saying that I think there are more similarities overall, let it be Uganda, let it be my home country, Italy, let it be now the US, than we tend to think. Obviously, not everything is the same, but especially when we look at young adults, I think in sub-Saharan Africa, like in India, like in Italy, and like more and more in the US as well, they are looking at labor markets that are more challenging than they were in the past. One thing that is very unique about India, and definitely not true about Italy, which is the second oldest country in the world, is that you have millions and millions of young adults that are entering the labor market every year. Millions of young adults that have that are highly skilled at this point. I mean, India has done an incredible job at skilling. When I say skilling, I mean across educational levels and also more technical skills. But again, some of the challenges that then make mentors such a, in my view, a prominent solution are similar. So I think we hinted at it before, the fact that the labor markets are not entirely, but pretty informal, the importance of your network, the fact that a lot of these young adults are first generation or similar, the fact that they're looking for jobs that their parents maybe didn't know existed and still now don't fully understand, their parents or their sort of the grown-ups around them. And then obviously the many migrants or people that are looking from more urban into like rural, from rural into more urban labor market. So this lack of easy way of accessing certain type of information and knowledge about the jobs that are available, I think is there, and it's pretty strong in India, like in other places, but here for sure. And then, of course, there are groups for whom this is more true. Let it be young women. Right. So I think when I think about mentoring and I think about India, I guess one last point I want to say is that the reason why I see, I don't know if I want to say a difference, but a reason for which I think is really interesting and important to be looked at as a tool is that also India is a place where a lot of the largest corporations are already present and looking at expanding because of that massive pool of talent that we were talking about. It's really thinking about how mentoring also within corporations can be a tool to attract the right people and get them to stay in the jobs that they find. So,
Yeah, very crucial point about the labor markets, the commonalities, and some unique challenges for India. Before we proceed, who wants to ask the first question? Who is it directed to? The format we shall follow, your name and the question quickly, and to who you would like to address it.
I am Dr. Wing Commander Nagasubramaniam. My question to the panelists in general is, how to identify a mentor in oneself? And is there any different skill set required to mentor the Gen Z?
All right.
So the question was how to identify a mentor in oneself, one's own capacity to mentor.
And then you're clearly the Gen Z expert on the panel, aren't you?
Not really. The Gen Zs will come next, in the next panel, actually. I'd say that it's an interesting idea that one of our panels will tease, but I think it should start, or rather I'll tease an idea that they're going to speak about, but I think it starts from first recognizing your a spirit of generosity, right? That you should do this fundamentally because it's the way to support others, and that's an important thing for all of us to do as we sort of rise through life ourselves, right? So I think that sort of intrinsic motivation cannot be substituted. Again, culture and other things can be a very powerful way to still get that intrinsic motivation to come out in people. The second part, though, is that if you have the intent and you're interested, that's a great thing. But like Vasanthi said, the skills are something that's extremely important for a mentor to have. I think we see them across like a set of skills that first support relationship building, because every mentoring relationship first has to have like a strong bedrock of that. Things that sound much harder to do than they are, like, for example, just listening with empathy, not having a space of judgment, not saying, but just, being there. I always sort of say that one thing I see in my mentoring relationship was I was never told to be a social entrepreneur. That was never the thing, that this is what you should do. It was that figure out how you can make the best of your life experiences. And then every young person will find their way, right? So that attributes of mentors are very difficult to do. Like, how do you be a helping presence, but not sort of try to force your hand in deciding anything? That's really important.
Yeah, yeah. The mentor should help you to figure out, not really give the solution. I see a hand up there. Mamta, how much time do we have?
Hi, good morning. So my question is to Ms. Arundhati. So the question is, I'm Deepthi. So over the years, with Mentor together, has there been an experience which tells you that getting to the mentees early on at school level or maybe in the middle school is the right time versus approaching the college grads?
I can speak a bit to it, and then I'd love to hear, because all of us have a few things that we do. I think the beauty of mentoring is there is a use case for it at every stage of time, and it doesn't preclude not doing it earlier or later, right? In a traditional sense, mentoring has often started in adolescence, because someone has the capacity to then engage one-to-one with someone and, again, have conversation as the bedrock of it and talk about ideas and dreams and all of that. When we started mentoring actually college students, we found another interesting use case, which was, again, the potential of technology, right? Because one of the things to solve for India is access to mentorship. When we worked with younger kids, it was always in person, and it always happened where the mentors were, which were the big cities. So where is that young person in Tiptur? Where is that young person in Khammam going to get a mentor, right? So when they reached college, they had this capacity to use phones and then very clearly get the skills exchange, the network ideas that Aditi mentioned. So I think there is a use case in each age group. You need to be aware of developmentally where are young people, because you should design for that age. But I think seeing the trajectory that we've had at Mentor Together, there are very compelling programs to be made for adolescents in high school, for young people in college, for young people as they're still in work as well, because a big challenge is around retention. So I would say that as the broader approach to designing mentoring.
Aditi, you want to add your inputs?
Yeah, sure. So couple of things here. I know technology is a great facilitator, and in India we've really used technology effectively. But I do want to also talk a little bit about, and you and I spoke about this, is the human side of things. I know there's so much conversation about AI and tech going on. But even with AI and these kind of large general purpose technologies coming in, while a lot of the tasks will be done by technology, I think what will remain relevant for us is our humanity. The skills that will be very valuable going forward will be our human skills. How do we communicate? Can we do creative thinking? Can we do critical thinking? Are we going to be good leaders? Do we have empathy? And I think the same thing is true for when we're thinking of young people either entering the workforce or just very new in the workforce. Because one of the things that we are beginning to see is that what are the kind of tasks? Think of us, when we joined the workforce. What are the kind of tasks that we were doing? We were making meeting notes. We were making, if you're a lawyer like me, you're making list of dates, preparing your seniors for the hearings. A lot of those tasks will become automated, right? So I think when people are coming in and joining the workforce right now, they're joining a very different type of work than that has traditionally been done. So I think mentoring at that stage is going to be very important. It's not just getting into the workforce, like finding jobs and all of that, but also how we do jobs. Our LinkedIn's own data is saying that even if you are not changing jobs, your jobs are changing on you. By 2030, the skills required to do the same job is going to change by 65 to 70%. So I think it's really, really imperative that for young people who are entering the workforce, where the older playbooks don't work, the older SOPs don't work, I think the human connection with mentors is going to be even more critical.
I think the human connection can't be overstated. I'm going to get back to the panel. on the areas of setting boundaries, especially, and some unique situations, even conflict of interest, for instance. But before that, want to do a quick check. How many questions are we still having on the floor? There are about 2, 3, 4. Yes, and some more. Okay, probably just a quick round, and then we can again take a set of questions. This time we'll try and club it in the interest of time. So now, speaking on the conflict of interest and what Aditi was mentioning about, so essential to have the human element. I remember this scenario when I was actually one of a, let's say, invited mentor, and the other person who was mentoring a startup, it's a college finalist, final year student who in a hackathon had met this mentor, and he became interested in that startup idea. So then are you wearing your investor hat? Are you just a plain mentor? And then he was discussing this with me, some of these scenarios, and I realized that many times in India, we also have other unique situations where, sometimes power hierarchies come into play. And then I know it's not just India alone. I mean, if it is within an organization, then who's senior, who's just entered the workforce? And then there are gender dynamics, depending on who is the mentor and who is the receiver, who's the mentee. So Rajiv, in your experience, even if with a personal anecdote, what can the mentor, let's say, whether it's restraint or keep in mind a couple of points while they are on this journey, so that you're giving that maximum benefit or impact without really having your personal element interfere in the process?
I think part of it is, not just empathy, but empathy goes beyond understanding a person's context to also understanding the mentee's world, right? The possibilities that exist, the barriers that might exist, and to be able to say, okay, I understand that it's a little more complicated for you than I might be making it out to be when I say do this, right? Okay, and so that's one dimension. That, for example, in my context, when I talk about political aspirations, lots of people would, tell my wife, this guy's wasting his time, they would say, right? And I would say, look, don't worry about what others say. What matters is what I'm passionate about. And, like that. So we don't necessarily, it might be difficult to relate to people and their context and their possibilities. And the other thing is, in the Indian context especially, we don't like people disobeying us, right? And so if you are the mentor, you've given some advice, it's very hard to basically, step back and say, okay, I did my part. Now what happens is somebody else's responsibility and their choice. So that's not so easy either, right? And especially if something goes wrong afterwards, I told you so. All that is unnecessary, right? But that all exists when you talk about the human side of mentoring. All of those aspects absolutely come in. Yeah. And I can easily see, you must have the experience of mentors saying, look, I don't want to deal with this person anymore because, he or she never listens. Or, I'm tired of speaking to the person and not getting any, follow-up in the direction that I've suggested. And even when there are counterproductive results, things like that. So it requires a certain willingness to let go, a certain empathy of a more detailed sort, and then a willingness to also step in and say, okay, don't worry about what happened. Let's continue and let's learn from this and move on.
Yeah. Particularly in a culture and civilization, the concept of a guru there is a very clear structure set, and so the mentor sees himself as a guru, and as Rajiv mentioned, the obedience part and all that comes into play. I'm going to lean on Livia to probably come to the best practices from a larger, let's say, global view, from even a B-school thought, if that works. But meanwhile, a quick set of questions from the audience. Can the mics be reached? We can, I think we should favor backbenchers. It's time. You do have a mic already? Yeah, sure. Go for it, and we'll try and
my
club
name
it.
is Gudia. I want to, I know a lot of conversation around mentoring majorly pivots towards youth and early career navigation. But I feel that there's a certain demography that gets constantly sidelined, which is like people who start at low paying jobs, women who want to re enter the workforce, either after a motherhood gap. And I think they also need structured guidance around skilling, around how to pivot careers, how to achieve economic mobility. So, I mean, I want to understand if there is and there needs to be a similar support system,
Sure.
and if there are, Livia, to you, any studies or research around that, and how can it be better structured?
Great. Your name?
Gudia.
Gudia. All right. One from that side. Can a mic be reached there? Yeah, if you can stand up, then I think they can identify your name and your question and to whom.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mannat, and the question is actually for the mixed panel. So it is to Dr. Rajiv, Arundhati, and Aditi as well. What we've established so far in the conversation is that mentoring is definitely a need in India, and both at the side of those who don't have access, so young people who are figuring out careers, or just how another attendee just suggested, like mothers and other demography who might need mentoring. So that need is visible, and I feel this collective who is present here today feels that it is an important conversation to be had. My question is, tech of course solves for access, as Aditi just mentioned. One of the big missing links is creating demand for wanting people to mentor. Like, how do we create demand for people to show up and raise their hand saying, hey, I want to be a mentor?
Okay.
And I feel like for the organizations, and it's not only Mentor Together can solve it, or one organization,
Sure.
the government
Thank
can
you.
solve it.
Thank you, Manat. Any other? Okay, one more question, and we can. In the first row, please. So, Livia, you could take the research as well as the yes.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Gunjan Taneja, and a great start to the day. I'll just build on the two earlier questions. Any thoughts on parents acting as mentors for their children?
Dangerous territory.
Yeah, I think in the current context, being a father to two young ones, parenting has become complex, sometimes political also. So any thoughts on how parents can be developed as mentors for their children, looking at the ecosystem that we currently live in?
Thank you so much, Mr. Gunjan.
So I'm not taking this one. This one I'll leave it. I'll leave it for somebody else. So much to say. Okay. So I think for best practices and linking to the research for whether there's research on mentoring. So as far as I'm aware, I would say right away, no. I cannot think of a research that's looking particularly at women trying to re-enter labor market, like mentoring women trying to re-enter after, say, a maternity break. I do have myself, I have research looking at mentoring of young adults entering the labor market, and especially those taking those low-paying jobs that I think somebody was referencing earlier. And I think in that research, what we see is that what mentoring is really, really effective at doing is helping these youths get on a sort of upward trajectory where they do start with these low-paying jobs, but that they're able to kind of climb to persevere throughout what we said earlier, hard labor market and hard jobs to begin with. And then kind of grow into the career trajectory. And the way that in that study, we really try and understand how are mentors doing this. And is it like, are they connecting them to other jobs so that they are sort of helping them, physically getting out of the low-paying jobs and getting into a higher-paying jobs? Are they giving them, particular information or skills? And the reality of what we see is that the main thing mentors are doing to that population is really providing this encouragement, motivation, this listening, this sort of active human element to it. So it's not just, okay, I'm teaching you how to do this next thing. You're in this job now, I teach you the skill for the next job. It's not like I'm connecting you necessarily to another opening, but I am there as you are going through and figuring out your path. So this like kind of constant, I would say also moral encouragement and support is definitely like shown to be very important. especially for those that start at the bottom that could be prone to giving up and feeling discouraged because of the hardship of what we're seeing. One other piece I wanted to add, and I think we talked about creating the demand for mentors. I think we'll talk about it maybe later tomorrow more. But one piece I want to mention is that I think we tend to think of a potentially big roadblock to having these mentorship programs is where do we find all these mentors? And I would say, first of all, we all raise our hands. I mean, we didn't, but I think we would have raised our hands when we were asked, are you a mentor? Or have you mentored someone? And yes, this is a room of people that thinks about mentoring maybe more than the average, but I don't think it's by chance that most of us raised our hands. We did a study, we are doing a study with Mentor Togethers where we basically design a call for mentors on LinkedIn through different ads. To study, ultimately what we're interested in studying is what motivate mentors to be mentors, and are there certain types of motivations that we want to make sure are the right ones, the ones we should be chasing. I'll talk a little bit tomorrow about some preliminary results, and maybe next year I'll come with the full results. But the one thing I want to say is that the first key piece was the overwhelming response that we got, that really, I think, set a piece of evidence that says there is a demand. The demand for being mentors is there. There is appetite for being a mentor to someone. In this case, was a young, disadvantaged kids getting into the labor market, helping them navigate. So many came through. We're talking about 12,000 people in the span of like 2-3 weeks that we didn't, I say we, like Mentor Together, collaborating with them, like we didn't expect. And that was very positive. So I would say, like, don't be shy in like asking. But I guess word of caution is you want to also be able to seize the moment. Obviously, for every mentors and for all of us, we have a lot of requests on our time, and our attention is limited more and more as our life is, full of things. So I think the moment someone shows to be interested, you want to make sure you kind of start working with that person and help them set the mentorship relationship in place.
Right.
For 1 or 2 or 3, whatever it is, steps, so that the relationship roots, and then they can go for it. So make sure to
I wanted to add on to what Livia said, because like she said, it was a result of a campaign that completely was, again, maybe 3 or 4 times more than what even a LinkedIn team member advised us as, because essentially LinkedIn gives its nonprofits advertising credit. And when we were planning this campaign out, we were told that you could expect maybe 6,000 mentors who'll sign up with this sort of plan. And in, I think, 6 weeks, we got 13,000 people who signed up. It was an advertising result that in the LinkedIn, in the business terms, was unprecedented for the acquisition cost, which of course we were not paying for. And they said that this is just happening because our algorithm just keeps finding more people very easily. And it was interesting advertisement that said, step up, stand out, or even that mentoring benefits you as a mentor. So we tried out a lot of messages, and I think we really also woke up to the power of reaching people directly. I think that was the other interesting thing, because I think we had assumed all our mentor acquisition would be through companies, which is a powerful platform, but reaching people directly is a very, very powerful thing. And I think mentoring combines the professional and the personal. Right? You're taking your life experiences professionally to think of paying it back, paying it forward in a personal way. So some platforms are particularly, again, how do you get to people when they're thinking of those two things? That's been very interesting.
Right. So since we have less than 4 minutes.
Let me just jump in for 1 second. What Gudia asked, right? In every domain, we need mentoring, right? So when I was a professor, a young assistant professor, essentially, just to get research done, you got to write papers and publish them, right? How do you go about doing it? How do you go about research grants? So you had senior colleagues who were literally assigned as mentors, and one simple piece of advice. One colleague said, just go sit in the library with a laptop and just write for 1 hour before you engage with the day. And at the end of the month, you actually have a draft of something ready, because you're not distracted with the rest of the world. You're just focusing on that particular task. Now, later in the day, I have a panel in the Tech Summit focused on creating a Bangalore research and innovation ecosystem, okay? And there, one of the key elements is, today we're putting demands on scholars and teachers saying, we won't promote you unless you have 2 publications in so many years. Nobody is saying, how do you go about doing this? How do you? So there's absolute need for mentoring there from people who are more experienced and who can, just open people's minds to the possibilities. So across every domain, it's absolutely needed. And just to finish off, as a parent, I can tell you that it's easier to mentor other people's children than your own. They just don't, however, well-intended you are, they tend to rebel.
And it's better to have an agreement in place with your own children, whether they want you as a mentor. Just speaking for myself, and when I was a news television journalist, I started sharing with my son, who was then in early school. And then one thing I would always do is that to share what wasn't working for me. I mean, the so-called failures. And it would seem like, okay, probably he's late, because, we'd go on these walks, or we had a nice big GKVK behind us, the Gandhi Krishi Vignan Kendra. And then also, and years later, he actually came back and said, you know what, I heard him telling his friend, saying that my mother used to go into villages and this thing, and, when she was sharing what wasn't working, I said, really, were you listening? It almost seemed like you were very disinterested. So, there are very different dynamics at work with the parent-children relationship. But nevertheless, I think we should find a way to share those, whether you call them mentoring or not. But this last 2 to 3 minutes, I want to have the best distilled wisdom or points with which you would like to close. So, Aditi, one is that we've shared the thing of scale and being surprised by the extent of reach, and I think Mannat's question as well. So how do you create that access, aspiration to be a mentor? But could you also share in your closing thoughts, how are you assessing how it impacted?
So I alluded to tech is very powerful, but at the end of the day, it's our humanity. So I'll close with a story. Amongst the many programs that LinkedIn runs, there's a program where we connect, again, people who are from tier 2, tier 3 towns and trying to enter the workforce. And this is a very amazing story of a girl from Rajasthan whose parents are daily wage earners. She managed to get into an NIT. And she was doing her course, and again, like Dr. Gowda said, that sometimes you don't even know what's possible, right? And then when we connected her to one of our employees, one of our coaches through this program, they had these conversations going, and he encouraged her to, no, you can apply to a big American company like the ones that I work in. And she was like, what, really? But she did secure, she applied, she got an interview, and she did get a job in Microsoft. And I think she had trouble explaining to her parents what Microsoft is. There are many ways, there are many frameworks we can set up to measure success, but it is these powerful stories of girls like Meena that keeps us going.
Livia, the most heartwarming moment, whether it was in Uganda or anywhere else that you want to close with, or anything else?
I think more than heartwarming, I think I'm going to build to what I was saying earlier. It's been, it has opened my eyes in the study that we're doing with Mentors Together to really see how many people are ready to do it and interested in doing it for all the various reasons. Like just in the last few days, we were reading, we have hundreds and hundreds of questions for these people that clicked on the ads when we asked, why do you want to be a mentor? And I have a few quotes here. People come in with like really an open heart, from all walks of life. We have young, we have older, we have women, we have men, we have people across all fields and jobs and educations that come in to give back, some to get something out of it. We have, speaking of the Gen Z, I was reading the quotes, there were people that wanted to do mentors to do the reverse learning as well, to like learn about the new generations and learn how to communicate to them. So I think the heartfelt piece was just to see the richness of heart that is out there, and thinking about how to scale this for India, where there is a lot of people to be mentored, like knowing that there are a lot of people that can mentor, and just learning how to seize that pool, I think is the way to go.
Thanks. Arundhati and Rajiv, your closing thoughts?
Well, there's immense potential and absolute need in terms of people who need to be connected with, touched, and guided and mentored. So this is an extraordinarily large challenge ahead of us. But we're already seeing tremendous progress. And across domains, you can see the need for mentoring. So, one of the things that this room indicated is that people are willing to step up and to pay it forward, as it were. And I think when you engage in mentoring, you also are transformed as an individual in ways that I may not be able to articulate. And so it's one of these good things in life that we should really scale up and find a way to reach to as many individuals as we can everywhere.
Right? No, I think just as an organization that thinks about it, like Prerna said, lives, breathes, and dreams about it. I think that the role that each of us can play is really the part that I think I'd like to leave with, because it's such a universal idea, whether you're doing this as a mentor, whether you are someone in a company that has the power to grant this as CSR or as volunteering, whether you're an educator that's thinking about how you bring this into your practice or how your students get access to it, whether you're a non-profit that's already working with young people. There's just like an entry point to mentoring for everyone, right? Which is such a powerful idea. Like, it's one of those things that you don't have to think about how to do it. It's just, or rather, why should I do it? It's the how, right? And I hope that over the 2 days of the summit, that through the panels and also the workshops, you'll learn the how, and you can easily go back with 5 things that you would do in whatever capacity for mentoring.
Thanks so much. And while time's up, mentoring is a two-way street. There is so much a mentor takes while giving, and there is so much to learn from you as audience. I mean, a bunch of us have got put here, but I'm sure there are more who are actually more richly experienced, and one would really like to learn from that side. And it's a great thing that has been put together, but thank you so much. And please applaud for yourselves and the spirit in which the summit has been put together. May we all learn continuously. Namaskara.
For sharing your insights on embedding mentoring across systems and for inspiring new ways to advance equity and opportunity for youth. As a token of our appreciation, we would like you to accept these mementos